Hi everyone, welcome back. I was making a list of things to talk about, and I've been remembering conversations I'd had with my daughter about gender interactions. You know, women to women, men to men, men to women, and how she has discovered in recent years, after coming out of a very long relationship, that many of the men she thought were friends that she'd had for years, now suddenly, and we're talking within a week after the relationship broke up, were suddenly interested in dating her. And she found that kind of, you know, she was a little annoyed by that, a little disappointed. These were people I had always thought of as friends. I've known them for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you know, more than that. And now they just all looked at me as potential dating material because they wouldn't stop at the first, no, I don't look at you like that. The friendship, in her opinion, had gone out the window. I had to explain to her, when I was growing up, all the media, all the TV shows, I don't actually remember my mother saying it, but that didn't matter. It was implicit in everything that a woman had to take what a man said with a grain of salt, because there was always an agenda behind it. There may be, not all the time, but there may be something behind this. He's not just talking to me because he's being nice. He may be just trying to, I hate to use the old term, butter you up, but he's just trying to smooth the way to get around to asking that question. Do you want to go out with me? Not being a traditional beauty, as I have never been, I've always had people accuse me of either being a boy, far away. They thought I was a short boy, or once they've got to talking to me, I must be a lesbian. I was just, and it's not accused, I was assumed to be a lesbian since I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I didn't even know what the word meant at the time. Because I am, I mean, now I wear the makeup, but a lot of that has to do with this camera here. My face would just fade into the background if I didn't wear makeup. And I'm actually starting to enjoy it for the first time in my life, but very lightly. I kind of like it, even though it's not natural for me to be doing this. I always felt like I was a drag queen putting on makeup, and it always felt so weird to put it on, and it didn't come naturally. It's, again, a skill. But not being a classic beauty, I've never had a lot of gentlemen hit on me. It was always odd, weird circumstances that these hits came at, and they were all of them really inappropriate. The first one I remember, and it wasn't even a hit, that was just, I guess, I don't know what you would call it nowadays. The first one, I was going for a job interview. I wasn't even 18 yet. I was 17. I was going to be 18 in a couple months, but I had quit high school and I was going for a job interview nearby. So I went to the job interview. I think I went to the job interview first. And I came walking back from it. I had to wait for the bus because I didn't know how to drive. Like, I still don't. I'm learning now. I didn't know how to drive, so there was a bar. And I thought, well, you know, let me go in there, have a soda while I'm waiting for the bus, because I had like an hour or two wait, because it wasn't the conventional path or whatever it was. So I'm dressed very nicely. So I was sitting at the bar having a soda, and the bartender knew I was there. And, you know, he may have suspected I was not the right age, but I wasn't buying alcohol either. So, you know, some gentleman, I guess 30s age, maybe a little younger, sat down next to me, and I didn't speak to him. I wasn't speaking to anyone. I was way too shy then. And at some point, his leg bumped my leg. I didn't think anything of it. And then the leg started rubbing up against his knee started rubbing up against mine. And I'm going, what the hell? Oh, what? Oh, no, dude, you got the wrong impression. Just because I'm a woman in a bar at lunchtime does not mean I'm that sort of woman. And so I moved my leg away. he tried to move his leg closer, and I actually got up and moved my entire seat over. And the bartender was like, did one of these, figured out what was going on, and he's like, everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. And, you know, that was it. That was my first, I don't know if you want to consider that a hit. I don't know what that was. But I guess they call that skeevy now. But it was just a thing. The next one was I was in work. We weren't married, my husband and I, yet, but I think we were working in the same place, if I remember correctly. And there was one of my sort of coworkers, and what I mean is coworkers, his job was to clean the bathrooms and make sure the break room was cleaned up after all the lunches and whatever. He did all that kind of stuff, the cleaning and stuff. So yes, he was a coworker, but I'd never really, you know, just occasionally spoke to him while you're hanging out in the lunchroom. So this one time I was hanging out in the lunchroom for whatever reason. I don't quite remember why I was there. It was after lunch. So he knew I had a husband. I sat with my husband and spoke only with him because, again, I was shy. I didn't speak to anybody else other than if they were friends of my husband. And my husband wasn't even my husband yet. As in, I wasn't wearing a ring or anything, but, you know, everybody knew we were a couple. So he hits on me. And I was kind of like, you know, doing the equivalent in my mind of a, dude, you've seen the big 6'4" guy that I hang out with who looks like a leftover biker. That's my husband. You know, you go to the one in pictures from, you'll see. Dude, I'm not interested. And he's like, I'm just checking. And I'm like, me being almost like a sociologist as always, I have a question. Why did you ask? He's like, well, it would just be, it would just be a one-off where, you know, it would never become a relationship because it would just be sex because you have someone. So you're safe. It's cool. I don't have to worry about you wanting it to become more. Oh. I had learned something. I didn't know that some men would think of it like that. So I turned him down, obviously. He took it well, blah, blah, blah. I worked in another place about after I'd had my first. I went back to work, and I was in a different factory this time. And I did have a wedding ring on at that time. And somebody, again, hit on me. Came over, he was new, and he came over. Hi, starts chatting me up. And like I said, everybody's suspect. Everyone may have an ulterior motive, and I'm listening to him, and I'm like, okay. And then the hit comes, and I'm like, no, thank you. I'm married. He's like, I know. That's why I'm asking you. What? I'm thinking, what? Wait. Did I miss something here? Am I just ignorant or what? You asked me because I'm married. Is that what you do? I'm just purely interested. Is that what you do? You only ask married women? He's like, yes. I said, is it because you don't want a relationship? He's like, oh, no, it's not that. Well, yeah, that's part of it. I don't want a relationship. And I said, oh, okay. 2, it might be, hey, people get bored. Okay. And 3, you're clean. Now, if you don't know what that means, I don't know what you modern young'uns mean. Basically, obviously, I don't have any diseases. And I was like, oh, because I asked. He's like, you're clean, obviously. I don't have to worry about catching something. Oh, I had the seal of approval. Fast forward, I was very heavily pregnant with my 3rd child. And we had just moved into an area. We'd only been there for a few, we moved in June. So this was early 80s, mid 80s. And I had, I put it down to the town, I'm hoping it was just the town, because it always was a weird vibe when we lived in that town. Unfortunately, I was stuck there for a very long time. But the first strangeness was I had only been playing housewife for about a month or 2, and a gentleman comes knocking on the door. And I'm like, yes, can I help you? And he was one of those things where they try to sign you up for meat delivery to your house. You know, pre-cut meats and cold cuts, and not cold cuts. You know, pork, beef, lamb, whatever. And it sounded really interesting, but it was out of our budget. And I said no, but I'll tell my husband about it. And he's like, okay. And like, he doesn't leave. Like, he doesn't step away from down the steps to go back to his vehicle. And I'm like, is there anything else? So your husband's at work? Yes. He's like, well, just so you know, if you ever want someone to talk to or, need some company during the day, I am always available. Okay. Mind you, I have 2 rugrats running around, and I'm just kind of, huh? And then, of course, then finally the light bulb goes over my head. And I was like, oh, like always available? It's always available. Always in the afternoon. You see what I do for a living. My schedule is very flexible. So, you have my number on the card. Don't hesitate to call. I'm like, thank you. But don't thank you. No, thank you. Have a nice day. I closed the door. And that was my first introduction to that town. And I was just like, huh, okay. Well, I told my husband about it. He thought it was hysterical. He was laughing his ass off when he got home. The next thing, I delivered at the end of October. So, like I said, now we're in July. July, August, well, that was June because we moved in June. So now we're, I guess it was September, and I was going to pretty much the last doctor visit before the delivery. So it was about 3 weeks before my child delivered. And I walked because, again, I think the only vehicle we had my husband was using for work at the time. So I walked to town, went to the doctor, and came back. And I was walking back, a truck pulls up, and they're like, Daddy, do you want to ride? And normally I don't take rides. I've actually only hitchhiked once and taken a ride twice, the hitchhiking and one other. And that was, much earlier, before this child was even conceived. But I was tired, and it was hot, and I was like, I didn't have a bad feeling, so I accepted the ride. So we're driving, chat, small talk's going on, and then he hits on me. And I'm like, again, you have noticed I'm very heavily pregnant. Like, is that your thing? You're into heavily pregnant women? He's like, well, no, not really. Well, yeah, maybe a little bit. And I'm going, oh, okay, his kink, whatever. And he's like, but, you're safe. I'm safe. Again, I'm safe. And how is it that I'm safe? Well, I can't get you pregnant. You're already pregnant. Oh, okay. And again, yeah, probably because I don't have any diseases. He's like, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, that's a good one too. That's a secondary reason to hit on a pregnant woman. So I made sure I got out of the vehicle blocks and blocks away from my house so that I didn't want this special person knowing where I lived. And then the last hit, well, not quite a hit. The last one was my next door neighbor was this family, husband, wife, and they had the wife's elderly father living with them. And they were taking care of him, and he would occasionally give me rides to town. And we were driving back. So this is a gentleman 60, 70 years old. We were driving back from whatever one time. And this was only like the second or third ride he gave me. And he put his hand on my knee, and I said, I don't feel comfortable with that. And he was also doing the baby honey, you know, all those colloquials that old gentleman did from his time period, which I only accept because he was a man of that age. Had he been younger, I would have told him I don't like those familiar terms being used on me. We don't know each other. And so he took the hand away, and then he puts it back on my knee, and he's rubbing my thigh. And I'm like, no, like I said, I took the hand and I moved it away. I don't like you doing that. And he's like, oh, I didn't mean nothing about it, honey. I'm like, I don't like, and I was like, oh, there we go with the honey. And I'm like, no, it's fine. I know you don't, but I don't like it. It doesn't make me comfortable. And that's the last time I ever accepted a ride from him. And I told his daughter that she's like, oh, you haven't had any ride from you're not letting my dad take you on rides anymore up to town. And I'm like, you know, and I was trying not to say anything about it. And she's like, is there a problem? Has he done something? And I'm going, he just, she's like, you can tell me. Please, we need to know if something's going on. And I explained what happened. She's like, oh, thank you for telling me. And I totally understand why you do not want to rent a ride from him. Trust me, I will talk to him about this. And I said, I don't want you to. She's like, no, there won't be a scene, but I will talk to him. That is inappropriate behavior in this day and age. And so that is the history of my hits. I don't know if I attract weirdness or what have you, but that's me. That's me in a nutshell. I want to thank you for stopping in and listening to me blabble. I'm looking forward to you coming back. Please like, comment, and subscribe and share. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.